Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on building material samples. This is Mark Mitchell from Wizard Strategy, and I'm joined by Benjamin Glunz from Swatchbox, and hopefully you'll get a lot of good value out of this. I apologize for I had the delay. We were set to do this 2 weeks ago, and I unfortunately unexpectedly had to go to the hospital, and I'm all good, all better, but no one likes those unexpected visits to the hospital. So we're here, but here we are, and we got even more people to sign up, so that's good. So let's get started. I'm going to I'm going to show you my screen here of just to kick things off, just a few slides here to take you through. And so the first thing I wanted to share was, if you've never seen this, I'm going to say about 3 or 4 years ago, I was working for a company that makes house wraps. And part of what I do with many companies in my process is I have someone order samples from my client as well as from their competition. And I just see what was the whole experience like and how does my client stack up against them. So I've got this YouTube video, which I will, there's going to be a recording of this available to all of you. And I will put in there the link to the YouTube video. But what really blew me away was the poor execution in terms of follow through, in terms of timeliness, in terms of what the sample looked like. All of those things told me, wow, what a very low bar. Now, it just may, this may be in the house wrap category, but it really just reinforced to me that how much better building material companies could do with their sample programs. Now, one of the things, if you follow me at all, is that I go crazy when I see companies wasting money. I see companies wasting money, for example, on trade shows, and samples are another huge budget item for many types of building material companies. And it can either be, to me, like I think many trade show efforts are, a big waste of money, or it can be a competitive advantage. So I hope you'll view it as a competitive advantage. I thought I put that on mute there. Okay. Um, Pardon that. And so building material samples, can be in the home improvement category, which is really a one-time sale. So a homeowner is going to put a deck on once. They could go to a architect or designer, which is probably represents a larger sale than an individual home improvement project. Or they can also go to builders and contractors to help the salesperson who's trying to convert a builder or contractor, or perhaps supporting a customer where a contractor wants to use your product, and he can take your sample in to his customer and show them why it's a better product. And so I kind of see building material samples fitting into these three main buckets. There are some others that they could fit, but this is, in my experience, the big ones. And then what I always like to look, would be to step back and say, okay, what is the value of a sale to you as a company? Is the value, somebody puts a $30,000 deck on their home. What is the value to you after we take out labor and all that? What's the value to you? Maybe even what's your profit margin? And so the other question to ask is, what's the role of the sample and how important it is? What's the role of the sample in the sales process, and how important is it in making the sale? Because I find people just go through the motions of, well, we have to have samples, we send them out. Yep. They don't step back and go, what's the sample really doing? Right. And then the other key to me is, most companies don't know the conversion rate of their samples. They just know they send them out. And then the final one is, you need to ask yourself or find out, how do you compare to your competitors in the sample experience? Now, building material samples to me are: one, expensive; two, they have poor execution; three, I find that they're not refreshed like they should be. And then fourth, they're not measured. So let's take a look at each of these. So samples are more expensive than most other forms of marketing. Now, in most times you're looking at something's expensive, you're trying to find ways to do it cheaper. Rather than trying to save money on samples, I would be looking for ways to make your samples more effective. Improve the return on investment of your samples. And that may mean your plan is to send out fewer samples to better qualified people who are more likely to convert, as opposed to measuring yourself on just the sheer more samples we send out, the better. There's also just extremely poor execution. Um, for example, when you in your personal life order something from Amazon or any good online seller, you immediately receive an acknowledgement. We've got your order. Okay, you can now relax. It got through. Um, there's then in the bill of materials area poor follow-up communication. Just like we sent the sample out, if they're interested, I guess they'll get back to us, as opposed to follow through with them. And it comes off almost like if samples are in many companies viewed as a function rather than a brand enhancing experience. So as long as I get you the samples, I've completed the function. You asked for it, we fulfilled it. The other one is I find many times they're not refreshed. Every time a building material company goes to a trade show, they will frequently redesign or at least major refresh their exhibit. And I don't see, so why not review and improve your sample program each year, especially how important it is and how expensive it is. And then finally, it's not measured. Most companies measure the number of samples sent and the budget or cost, but I don't see them measuring the conversion rate overall or the conversion rate by type of customer. So what I mean by that is you may send out 1,000 samples, but within there are how many samples went to this type of customer, this type of customer, this type of customer, and to be looking, saying, wow, samples are really a great conversion tool in this situation. Not so good over here. Now, here I am trashing samples, but let's really take a look here. What's good about samples? If someone requests a sample, they are really interested. I don't know whether you might call them a hot prospect, a warm prospect, but they're not a cold call. And then the other thing, if you mail something, to somebody that's three-dimensional, everybody loves to get a package. It's like Christmas, So in my experience, when I send out something or have a client send out something in a three-dimensional package, the open rate is like over 80%. It gets to the person you want to reach, and they may throw most of their other mail in the trash, but they will open something that's three-dimensional. And like you compare that to email open rate, which it's all over the place, but we'll just peg it at 15%. And then if you just mail somebody a letter, a catalog, a postcard, the open rate is under 5%. So I would much rather reach fewer people more effectively than reach a whole bunch of people ineffectively. And the other good thing about samples, it really is an amazing opportunity for you to differentiate yourself and create a brand preference or personality. And I'll show you some examples. So I want you to also think about, when you send somebody a sample, you're creating, in many cases, a first impression. So think of it as a job interview. You would maybe shine your shoes, you would get your hair cut, you might think about what you're going to wear that day. You might look at your fingernails, whatever it is, but you want to create a favorable first impression. And people, just like you size up people quickly, if something comes in the mail to you, you quickly form an impression. In just a matter of seconds, you go, professional, innovative, lackluster, whatever you go. But you want to make sure that your sample is putting your best foot forward. The other thing you want to, I find, is people assume, well, this person requested a sample from me, so they must be interested in me. Well, you should make an assumption that they also requested samples from your competition in today's world, because they're going online to find you, and they're going to bump into your competition when they're online looking for you. So, so you want to think about, you're competing to be the winner. And so, it's just like almost like a beauty pageant. If you are do terrible in the talent competition, that probably is really going to hurt your chances of being the winner. And if you do terrible in the sample execution, that's going to dock you back, no matter how great your product is. Um, so just here's an example. So just a couple of weeks ago, this is not building materials, but a couple of weeks ago, um, some friends sent my wife and I a gift, which is the box on the top. So on one side it said "Spoonful of Comfort," the other side is this rooster, and some other slogan. I don't know what's in here. Okay. Now, it would be okay to know what's in here in the case of a building material sample, but that same day, I also received the package on the bottom. Okay. Well, which one was I more curious about opening and intrigued, and started to have some, immediately started to form some favorable impressions about this company. Now, then they were delivering, this is a company that sells tomato soup online. Okay. So, imagine if tomato soup was a building material and I had 5 companies send me samples of their tomato soup. Okay. Well, this one here, the one on top, starts right away on the outside of the box to create a favorable impression. Right. And then they really blew it away, where I open it up and the first thing I see is "Love by the Spoonful." And here's a ladle that's put there. And then underneath, you open it up and there's a big container of tomato soup. Well, my mind is already made up. This is going to be a great tasting tomato soup. And so just think about, in your case, I'm not saying if you're selling shingles to put a hammer in there or something like that, but I think just the idea here, what I'm trying to get across, is creativity and attention to detail. Okay, like it's hard to see in this photo, but you see when I opened the box, they even imprinted the inside of the box. Every detail here was really thought through. And so my guess is I'd probably, no matter what the other tomato soups were like, I already believe this one's going to taste better, whether or not, or made better, whether or not that's actually the truth. Now, so your goal is to have the best sample program in your product category. So it's not the best sample program of all time or anything across all building materials, but if you're doing siding, if you're doing windows, if you're doing flooring, whatever the category is, you just need to be the best, within your category. And here's a great example, Nichiha. Now, I don't know if you have followed this trend on YouTube, but there's a whole bunch of people, and they do what's called unboxing videos. So when they get a new product and they're really they're excited, they turn on their video camera and they record themselves opening the box. The whole experience, opening the box, what's inside, what's this, what's that, and they report their impressions on how this looked. Well, this is the first building material unboxing that I've seen, and here was Nichiha. This was they shared this on LinkedIn, and I also I'll also give you the link to this, because it's actually a video of a customer opening up their fiber cement siding, and being so impressed with the way it came off. So that's another way to goal is like, gee, I want to have such a great sample that somebody wants to do an unboxing video of it and put it on YouTube. So another thing that I have found in since March, since we've been locked down, a number of my clients, I've been saying, okay, let's change the way the order of a sales presentation, particularly because it has to be virtual. So if I am making a virtual sales call, on a customer, and we're talking on Zoom or whatever we're talking on, and I'm talking about my beautiful product, maybe I'm showing PowerPoint slides, but the customer can't touch and feel it. So what I've been encouraging companies I'm working with that are doing this to send a sample before the virtual call. So the customer has the sample in their hands as you're walking through. Notice the texture of this, notice how strong this is, notice how thick, notice how whatever you want to notice. But this is a new use of samples that I think I found has been really effective in helping our new world of virtual sales calls. Now, I'm going to introduce now Benjamin Glunz from Swatchbox. Now, Benjamin, I've known for a number of years. First of all, Benjamin is an architect, so he knows what he's talking about. And in being an architect, he's experienced how building material companies can be successful or more successful or less successful. So he's learned a lot of that, and he has several companies that are all designed around supporting building material companies. And his newest company is called Swatchbox, and it is designed around helping building material companies to do a better job with their sample programs. So Benjamin's now going to join us and share some of his insights that I hope once again, or I'm confident will help you to look at your sample program and make some improvements to it. So welcome, Benjamin. Oh, hello, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Thanks for having me, Mark. It's great to be here.
Yes. Oh, everybody, we're going to have a question and answer session toward the end. So you can just, I think, use the chat function to type in any questions you have, and Benjamin and I will be happy to answer them.
Sounds great. Well, thanks again for having me, Mark. As Mark said, I come from a background of architecture, worked on a number of large projects through the years, and ultimately left to start working with building product manufacturers to be able to make it seamless between architects and building product manufacturers. And so all of the products that our company offers revolve around that key concept of making it seamless between the specifier and the material supplier. And so you may know us as BIMsmith, you may know us as Swatchbox, but today we're really going to be doing a deep dive into some of the data that we've uncovered as we've talked to architects and designers across the country around what they're looking for from a sample program. So first, I'm going to kick us off here by showing a study that our group did. And Mark, can you just confirm that that's coming through?
Well, I'm seeing the Swatchbox.
Yep.
It says 2, and I'm seeing a Swatchbox logo in the lower right corner. Oh, wait, there it is. There it is. It's a build slide. How creative. Good.
Okay, great. So our group went out and worked with a firm to study the 100 of the top building product manufacturers across the industry. So that's the beginning of this data set that we looked at, and all 100 offer sample programs. So we did not include any companies that don't offer samples. So from that initial data set, 100 top companies. So then as we look at this, only 67% made it known that you could order a sample on their website. So what that means is for the other remaining group of manufacturers, you had to call them up or call your rep or hunt somebody down and beg and plead to get a sample. And so only 67% mentioned samples anywhere on their website out of those 100. Slimming down further, only 42% had integrated tools on their website for sample ordering. So the difference between that would be having an actual ordering system where I can go in and self-serve versus just filling out a form and saying, hey, send me a sample, right? So that's a key difference. And a lot of people think that it's really not a big deal. Oh, we'll fill out a form, we'll get more information that way. But it's really an obstacle because there's a trust factor for me as an architect. And I'm going to tell the story at the end of this study, that speaks to that. But when I have to fill out a form, it's kind of like, ooh, am I actually going to get that? versus an actual integrated experience. So that's a key distinguishing factor there. Only 25% of the 100 actually offered samples at the point of product research. And we define point of product research as the place where I've actually made the decision that I want to get that sample. A lot of people have this sort of samples page, and that's fine. That's certainly one option. But it's really important to offer some sort of ability to order a sample. Once I've drilled through all the layers of your website and said, I want this brick in this color, that I can order sample right there, versus sending me off to another site or sending me off to another service or sending me off to even another page on your website. I then have to go and refilter all over again. So offering it at the point of product research is a nuance, and it's an incremental fix that can really yield better results. And then here's the big one. Only 3% were able to get us samples in under 3 days. And that just kind of was stunning to us in terms of the gap across this entire chart, and we fill it in with the white space. And so that's really what inspired us to create the Swatchbox service, which is an online sample fulfillment service, that integrates directly into your website. There's a full API. There's all sorts of integrations. And then, with that, making sure that it's a holistic experience. So, filling in this white space, from not only the software that goes on the website, but the actual logistics, which is included, and then the shipping program, and then the digital intelligence afterward. And we'll come back to that. But I did want to tell a story of a time when I was in practice working on a very large multifamily project, about 200 units. And there came a time where the municipality required a sample board for us to go in for permit. And I'll point out that that's a growing trend in higher end municipalities, that these sample boards are becoming a part of the submittal with the permit set. So that becomes a lot more urgent for me as an architect. And so, in this particular project, I was looking at siding, and we were looking at 3 different brands. And one of them we called, they never called us back. They didn't have any way to order it. The second we called and they said, we'll get it to you. And then the third had an option to order it online. Now, the one that we ordered online ended up coming within 2 to 3 days. The one that we called ended up coming in 3 weeks. And the one that we called that never called us back actually never called us back, and we never heard anything from them. So in this tale, who do you think we put on our sample board and ultimately had to stick to with our specifications because it went in for permit? Of course, it's the one that got it to us in a very timely fashion and followed up with us. So, this is very high stakes stuff when you get to this level with architects, and, perhaps even more so than with designers, because ultimately with an architect, you want to get into the specification and into the BIM asset. And so if you're able to tie that all together with a great sample experience and get into that spec and be able to hold it, that's where you're going to convert these larger opportunities. So, the other side of it is, this experiential aspect, right? And, though this is just sort of a joke, in some cases, it's not that far off. You do see some of these awful garbage packages come through. And that's not a great brand impression. And, I see what you all spend at trade shows, in the old days, as I like to call it now. We're out at trade shows, and Mark has railed against this consistently, but you spend so much money on beautiful trade show booths and exceptional cocktail parties and, some of the coolest in-person events. And then, I get your packaging and it looks like this. And, the crazy thing to me is that, that hasn't been thought through. And so, we really want to move on then to, what are the different aspects to a good sample program? So first, it's easy. So we want to make it easy, like we spoke to. Second, it needs to be free. We don't want to be charging architects. Now, if you have a homeowners program, that's a totally different game. And, there is a play there to be able to charge for samples with homeowners specifically. But with architects and contractors, ultimately, they're not the end owners. So they shouldn't be, paying for samples. So free becomes a really important thing when we're talking about architects and specifiers. 3, is it reliable? When you say you're going to send me a sample, are you actually going to do it? And there's another data point that 20% of the samples we ordered never arrived after we had ordered them. And that also sort of blew our mind that you're saying here's a sample and then it never comes. So that's really a ding to your credibility if it's not reliable and communicated how that's going to work. 4, is it timely? Are we able to get it in a few days, 5 days max if you really need to? And then 5th, is it experiential when it arrives? And that's kind of what Mark was talking about with the tomato soup package, which was pretty cool. Is it an experience that I'm going to want to run over to my colleague's desk in the office and say, hey, did you check this out? Is it the kind of thing where I want to film an unboxing and post it to social? Is it the kind of thing that I want to talk about? And something that we talk a lot about here at Angularis is, is this cool enough that I'm, or work altering enough that I'm going to grab a colleague by the collar and say, you have to use this, right? And that's really the benchmark that we use as we create our services. And so, something we say a lot about sample programs is sample smarter. And, this is sort of the workflow that we offer here at Swatchbox. And you can see here, we store samples for you in inventory. We also fabricate them. The designer orders the sample. We batch, pick, and process the order. We ship to the customer on a 2-day guarantee. They receive their custom curated package. And then we report back to you through Swatchbox Core Analytics. And so, a lot of folks talk about materials marketing and sample programs where you have these samples that are going out, and it's the largest item in your budget, in your marketing budget, and yet you have almost no analytics on this. And so that becomes a really important factor as you develop your program, is how can you measure this, and how can you turn that from being a black box to being a predictive analytics tool. And that's something that we talk to manufacturers about a lot. So Mark, I'll hand it back to you.
Yes. Okay, great. So one of the other things that you want to make sure we covered is you're also involved in the design of the sample experience. To my knowledge, when I've come and visited you, that you have designers. That, I mean, if a customer has already, this is our sample, you can execute that, but I think you also can add value by being an outsider who looks and says, if I were an architect receiving this sample, is this the way I want to receive it? What impression does it leave with me? That you also are able to help with that, which I think is a really important part of things.
Yeah, and a lot of people think it's just throwing something in a box, and people say, oh, we've got people down in the warehouse that just kind of go and do that. And the reality is most manufacturers' inventory and their warehouses and their fulfillment and their logistics are set up around shipping truckloads and pallets, not tiny little squares of something, right? When you think about the difference of shipping a pallet of materials to a job site versus the process and equipment and logistics that you need to be able to predictably and with a white glove send a piece of material that's 4 inches by 4 inches, it's very different. So the thing to think about is your team in-house really suited to that, and what is that costing you in actual opportunity?
Yes, and I think the other thing that you brought up or reinforced was in today's world of where you can automate so many things. So as soon as someone requests a sample, they literally, they automatically should get an email that we received your sample request. And in today's world, we're used to then getting an email that says your samples shipped, and another one that says your samples were delivered. Uh, those types of things. I've also found, Benjamin, that, well, first of all, I think just because you've always done samples, always done free samples, or because your competition doesn't mean you have to. You should maybe sit back. And so I find that companies that have a very low conversion rate to the number of samples they send out, to me, are sending samples out to unqualified customers. And you're not going to run into, an unqualified architect, but but still, I think it's important to, the more that you can qualify somebody, you now know more about them and their project within this. And so, and if they're obviously not qualified, you don't spend $100 or whatever it is to send them a sample, or $20, whatever it is, but it's not cheap. You can steer them to another solution if they're not qualified to buy your product.
Yeah, and some of our partners here at Swatchbox that we work with choose to put a rep wall in front of sample ordering, right? So, you can file a request and then essentially be able to vet that through the reps, but then it turns into more of like a concierge service for the rep to go out and call on that architect once they've requested that sample. Now, it still needs to be all the things we talked about. It needs to be free. It needs to be timely, experiential. But if you can pair a really good service, a good sample service with really good reps, you can qualify that even more. And that's strategically a decision that you need to make, whether that's going to be, is everyone qualified? Is are samples above a certain quantity or cost going to need to be qualified? Or is it just literally everybody is self-serve for everything? So there's different tiers of that in the way that you can think about it strategically. There's also ways to segment programs by, is this somebody coming in with a Gmail address, or is this a pre-qualified firm, that is in your system, right? So there's all sorts of different ways to kind of have different tiers and different service levels without having to say it's all or nothing, as some companies think.
Yes, well, I think that term rep wall can get. I've worked with some companies where the reps want to be in control of
Yeah,
everything,
right.
and so the first problem is the rep's busy doing things, and all of a sudden he gets 10 sample requests. Well, he's not going to stop what he's doing to address those. Okay, he's going to get to it when he gets to it. Which could be 2, 3, 4 days later, and so now I understand there are some times when the rep says, "I would like to deliver this sample myself," or "I would like to get the contractor involved." Okay, but I think you can design that into the system, into the pre-qualification, about when that happens and when that doesn't happen. The rep should always be in the loop of what's going on, uh, but I don't think they should be involved in slowing the process down, because I find some reps will just assume everybody's qualified, and then some reps will do a good job of qualifying, but they take too long to do it because they're busy. It's not their only job.
Right.
Um, and so, I
And,
find
and the same could happen in the warehouse too, right? If an order needs to go out and there are truckloads that need to go out, Harry working down in the warehouse is going to get to that one little sample whenever they get to it, right? And it's kind of off on the side pile. Maybe they have to stop the line. We were talking to a customer that was looking at our service. Basically, right now, when they want to make samples, they actually have to shut down the line of where they're actually producing billable product to cut and create the samples. And you don't want to do that either, because then today's economy, where many building materials manufacturers have shortage and are very behind, you don't want to stop the line ever. So making use of a fabrication service like what we have can also be a great way to not lose that productivity on the line.
exactly. And another observation that I've had is companies who get a very high conversion rate, and I'm talking 50 and 60% of the time, which seems to me like, what? That they're converting that many sample requests into actual sales. And what I'm finding is they either using their reps or an in-house selling team or customer service team, they are literally building relationships with those customers by email, by phone, by whatever they can. Did the following up. What'd you think of the samples? Aren't they amazing? Tell me about your project. What are you doing? Oh, that sounds wonderful. Or whatever it is, but they've taken that extra step, and they don't just leave it to chance, that the customer's sitting there looking at
Right.
5 samples, which one's the best. They're the one company. And what I think also happens is the customer goes, wow, I really dealing with this company would be great. I know they would give me great service. Gee, I hope I can afford them. I hope they're the one we choose, because of that. You're setting an example in today's world that you're going to be a great and easy company to do business with, where you may send me an impressive sample, but if I don't have any interaction, maybe you're extremely difficult to deal with.
Right.
And so I think that's an important part. I've got a few more slides I want to share with everybody here. Um, and let's jump back here real quick. So there's our, lovely Benjamin again. So this is the final couple of slides I want to take people through. So my recommendations. First, consider sending fewer but better designed samples to the most qualified prospects to convert a higher percentage and increase your return on investment. Many companies just go, oh, the more samples we send out, the better, right? And they're not looking at the conversion ratio of just sending those out. Okay. And so if you have a certain set sample budget, many companies will say, well, I have to keep reducing the cost so I can send out more samples within this thing. And I'd say, find ways to maybe send fewer but better designed sample programs. Um, the other one is this is a real eye opener for most companies. Get somebody outside of your company, get a third party, or your brother-in-law, whoever, and have them request a sample from you, and have them request samples from your competitors, and have them document how hard was it to request a sample, and then was there a sample request acknowledgement or other follow-up? How long did it take for the sample to arrive? When it did arrive, what was your impression? What was their impression of the outside of the package as they opened the package, walking through it, everything that was in there, and then finally, when they hold your product up that they received in the sample kit next to your competition, what was their impression about the product? And this brings up something I forgot to mention, and that is it seems like some sample programs are a kind of a catch-all about, well, we also have this brochure, and we also have this warranty card, and we also have this, and they just start throwing stuff in there, okay, with no rhyme or reason or no thought to it. It's just, and every extra thing you put in something competes with your main message. So if it isn't supporting it, it's competing with it or detracting from it. So be very careful about what you put in there, um, and then from this audit of your sample program and your competitors, what did you learn and can improve? And this is a very valuable thing. Of course, I think you should do it once a year, but even once every 2 or 3 years. And if you've never done it, it is a real eye opener. And you could, have somebody from your agency do it, using their personal email and their personal situation, or you could pay an architect to do it. But I think, do an audit and use an outside person and measure yourself against your competition. And then, overall, what I think Benjamin and I are both trying to get across to you is to just rethink your sample program. Ask yourself, how do you measure success? Should you send out fewer samples? Should you have different samples for different types of customers? I would recommend that, too many building material categories have kind of fit into a mold of this is what a sample looks like for this type of product. We all kind of look the same with different logos. I would recommend that you work with a creative firm to radically reconsider what is a sample for your type of product. and so, kind of break the mold and stand out and force your competition to react to you rather than you're all just kind of going through the motions. Um, and then also, I think, you know, many, in my experience, many building material companies manage their sample program internally, or they'll outsource part the fulfillment, assembly, and fulfillment to a job shop, not to a sampling expert. So I also would recommend you consider changing how and who produces and manages your sample program. It's just too important and too expensive uh, to not do the best job that you possibly can. Um, so before we get into anybody's questions, just here's Benjamin's contact information if you'd like to follow up more with Benjamin. Um, and he can be reached at Swatchbox there. And once again, you'll have copies of this. And then this is how to get in touch with me. My website, seethewizard.com, or my email is mark@seethewizard, or I love to connect with people on LinkedIn. Um, and I also just want to share that twice a year I do a workshop for building materials sales and marketing executives called the Wizard Summit. Until last spring, it was done live in Boulder, Colorado for 2 days. And this December 8th, 9th, and 10th, I'm going to be doing a live stream version of this um, that'll be in tracks for residential sales, commercial sales, and marketing. So I recommend you, if you find that you've learned anything of value here or anything else from me, that you take a look at signing up for that. Benjamin, any other final words you have?
Yeah, I would highly recommend the Wizard Summit. I'll be there as a speaker, as well as a number of other experts in the field of digital product marketing and things like that. So it's a great experience that I would highly recommend. Um, so yeah.
Well, good. Well, let's see. Now, Benjamin, I'd like to open it up. If anybody has any questions that we can answer for you. Um, I don't know if you should be able to jump on the chat function and just type in any questions that you may have. And I want to say thanks, Tots, for that. I'm feeling well. Yep, I am. Thanks for that message. So, anybody have any questions or challenges or anything, any way that Benjamin and I can further help anybody that's on here? Well, I'm not seeing anything. So let's do this. I'm going to be sending each of you an email that has a link to a recording of this, and I will be Q&A. Let me jump over here. We do. This is a good idea to get feedback on the sample experience is to send an automated survey. Yes, that is a good way. I have to say that um, surveys, are good because they're, we'll say, quantitative. I'm a big fan though of, like, picking up the phone and talking to people or getting their one-on-one kind of thing versus what a survey tends to ask specific questions. And I always find when I answer a survey, gosh, I wish they would have asked this question, because this is really where the this is I think the issue this company's having, and it's not on the survey. But thanks for suggesting that. Any other questions? Oh, best practice. A good sorry, here. Best practice for me is to send a tracking number to the sample being sent to an architect. Oh, yeah. There's a great example of, I get like I enjoy one of my hobbies is photography. So if you like photography, you're always looking for, new little gadgets and widgets. And there's a company that makes it's called a cage, and you put it around it's a metal cage that goes around your camera and enables you to put microphones and lights and other stuffs on it. And the best company I've found is called Small Rig, and they're located in China. And they amaze me. I go on, I order this $31 thing from China, and I feel like I'm dealing with Amazon. Boom, I get an order acknowledgement. Boom, I get your product was shipped within hours. Boom, I get things like, you cleared customs. Boom, it's on the FedEx truck. Boom, it was delivered an hour ago. And I order something from who knows where in China, and 3 days later it shows up. And the whole experience was not. It was what I'll call best U.S. company practices in the experience there. So that's a great suggestion. Any other, I love this, not only questions for Benjamin and I, but suggestions or things that you've learned that have worked for you or best practices. We'd also love to hear any of those.
Yeah, and as those are coming in, that's so crucial to have those follow-ups because it tells you, how long you're going to have to wait, and it tells you, where it is if there's any issues. It just gives the confidence that you can wait instead of having to panic and go order another thing from another company to kind of hedge your bet. But if you have the confidence that the one you ordered is going to come through, that can really save you from going off to one of your competitors.
Exactly. Well, and that's another thing. We keep talking about speed. When you want something or you're interested, you want and you're interested right now. So, if it takes 3 or 4 weeks for me to get a sample, one, I may have already decided on your competitor. Two, I may have lost interest in the project and forgotten, oh, what is this? Did I order this? And so, so don't let that, I know there's sometimes when it can't be helped that a sample takes longer to pull together. If it's, like I was working with a cladding company actually in Greece that makes aluminum cladding, and they do custom color samples, and they can't, and it takes a couple of weeks for them to get the color correct and get the paint from the paint manufacturer and then paint the sample and then ship it. So the customer understands that, but during that time they're communicating, giving them regular updates. But many times people don't see this, they have a sense of urgency when it comes to samples. And if you're going to be in samples, you need to do it right, or you're going to end up wasting a lot of money. So if there's no other questions or suggestions or observations,
Yeah, I'll add another suggestion.
Yes.
To lace in a digital experience is also something that we talk a lot about with our customers. Is you don't have to keep the physical realm of a sample completely divorced from the digital experience. And a lot of people view that as very siloed. And a lot of what we've been investing in with our technology is kind of the blurring of those two lines together, right? So that's something to think about as well, is how can you tie into other digital assets like BIM or guide specs, things like that that can kind of pull the specification experience all the way through. And that's just something else to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion. So I hope this has been beneficial to everyone that's tuned in, and we can have given you some thoughts that you can go back and look at your sample program and look and say, how can I make it more effective? Because it really can be a tremendous competitive advantage. And it's expensive enough that you have to think of it that way and not just think of it as a task that you have to just check off and complete and hope that you stay within budget or something. I think, really a big difference today, particularly in our world when you can't meet people face to face as much as we're used to. The sample also now fills in a new role, sense of importance in your whole sales process.
Yeah, and I'll just add, Mark mentioned kind of auditing your sample program and making sure that you know where you sit and where your competitors sit. At Swatchbox, we actually offer a free sample program audit. And it's very comprehensive. We have some firms that are involved so that it all comes through very legit, as far as getting the real experience. So if anyone's interested in that, that's something that we can certainly offer, at no charge to you. So reach out to us if you'd like to do something like that, because we do have a process around it, and you have a report that we'll give you that you can share with your executives and make that all very easy experience.
Yes, because I think I think that just like we go to trade shows many times because we've always gone, because what would people think if we didn't show up? Okay. And so it's kind of like we're stuck in this thing. No one says, what if we didn't go? Okay. What if we took that money and spent it in a different way? Okay. Um, and I think the same thing happens with samples. There's just a mindset with sometimes some senior people that, like, no, I want a big button on there that says free samples. The more samples we send out, the better. And they don't step back and go, well, wait a minute, are we putting our best foot forward? Are we creating the most favorable impression? Are we supporting our wonderful product by putting it in a package that is as good as our product is? um, and so I think that, like, it's up to people in marketing to kind of push back on those things and challenge those assumptions, and continue to improve, especially in some area here where you're spending so much money. So, Benjamin, anything else?
No, I think that's it from my end. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Thanks everyone for tuning in, and reach back out to Benjamin and I if you have any other questions, suggestions, or observations. We love to answer questions, and also we love to keep learning from people that have found ways to be more successful. So I hope everybody has a great day, and I will send you an email with a link to the recording of this if you want to revisit or share it with anybody. Take care, everybody.
All right, thanks everybody.
Bye.